Well, good evening, everyone, and we are great to see you online here, and welcome to another Windrush National Organization Engagement online meeting. My name is Pastor Clive Foster. I'm a senior minister at the Pilgrim Church in Nottingham, and I'm also the vice chair for Windrush National Organization. Our strapline is advocating today for a better future. I'm pleased that you can join us on this another one of our monthly online engagement events. What we always do at these meetings, and for those of you who may not be familiar, we always invite a moment and a word of prayer. So those of you who would like to join us at this time, please feel free to join us. If those of you who don't, please just bear with us. But at this moment, we would just like to have a word of prayer before we start the meeting officially. Shall we pray? Father, we just thank you through your name of your son, Jesus, for giving us another day and another opportunity. We thank you for your goodness and your mercy towards us. We just pray for everything that will be done today, that it will be to your honor and glory. We thank you that you reign. We thank you that you have given us hope. And we just pray, Lord, that you'll continue to direct our footsteps and bring justice and healing and peace to the nation as we give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, again, I just want to welcome everyone to this meeting. This is a regular monthly meeting that we have as part of Windrush National Organization and our engagement with the communities responding to the Windrush scandal. Delighted that today we are going to be hearing updates from members of the Windrush compensation team, and also we'll be hearing from one of the recently new appointments, the independent advisor to the Windrush compensation, Martin Levermore. Just to say a few things in terms of how we're going to be proceeding today. First of all, if there are any media contacts or outlets here on the line, please could you just declare that, make this known to the meeting so that we can acknowledge that, because we don't really want things going out on social medias and we're not aware that a media is actually on the call. So if there are any media colleagues on the line, please could you disclose that you're here for media participation, and that would be most appreciated. Okay, if I don't hear any. I'm sure we're all familiar with Zoom etiquette. Just to remind you that there, throughout this meeting, there will be a few presentations. We're asking for everyone to remain on mute. There will be an opportunity for questions and answers. At that point, you may come off mute and encouraged to ask your question. We do ask that people do this in a way which is respectful. Nobody here is not afraid of a hard question, a difficult question, but we should have mutual respect for one another, and we just encourage that when we are giving our questions. Also as well, please remember that this is a really good opportunity to get up to speed with what's happening with regards to Windrush. So do take that opportunity to either ask a question when the moment arrives. You can also use the chat function to put your questions and your comments. Again, we ask that people be respectful. We do recognize that there are issues of great concern. We want people to be open and transparent and authentic, but we do ask for respect. We are not afraid if we find that there is any kind of abuse, that the person will be removed from this meeting as a result of that. And we are encouraging that as a result of, even if we can't answer your questions in the chat, we do endeavor to actually make a note of your questions, get back to the Home Office on your behalf, and then we can print that information on our website for you to actually later, hopefully, get engaged with that. Just to remind everyone as well that this meeting is being recorded, so if you don't want to be a part of the recording, please stay off camera, but this meeting is being recorded and it will be available on our Windrush National Organisation website for later for your own viewing as well. So at this time, I'm delighted to be handing over to our chair for the Windrush National Organisation, Bishop Desmond Jadu, who will lead us through the next session of our agenda and give us a bit of an update from Windrush National Organisation. Bishop Desmond.
Thank you, Reverend Clive, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Just a quick announcement, you'll all be, or some may be pleased to know that we won't be having a meeting next month, and our meetings will return Thursday, the 20th of January. In addition to that, thank you, as I said, thank you all for joining us this evening. Now, I've got an apology to make because we've had some members who have had bereavements. It's been very difficult to get through all the information and have it posted on our website, but we're hoping during the break to actually have all the questions that we've had processed, responded to, and posted on our website. So our apologies for that. Windrush National Organisation is an umbrella organisation for 17 Windrush organisations across the country. And just to give you a taste of that for those who haven't been on a meeting before, we've got Glenda Caesar, who is a part of Windrush Lives and also our Dominican connection as well. We've got Nigel Guy in Bradford. We've got Reverend Clive Foster in Nottingham, Charlie Williams, the Windrush Movement UK based in Birmingham and West Midlands, Julia Davidson, Windrush Generations in Peterborough, Dawn Hill Black Cultural Archives, and we've got June Elizabeth, who is in Northampton, and we have other chapters in Preston, Manchester, and also Luton, and for a few others as well. If I missed anyone who's physically on the call tonight, my sincere apologies. And we've also got Leeds as well. So there we go. So that's who we are. One of the things I'd like to update you on this evening is that we've been doing some research and we are becoming concerned as an organisation, and we've discussed this with the Home Office already, of the number of people who are coming forward who have been in care during the 1970s, particularly during the late 60s and early 70s. We're not here to talk tonight to talk about what's going on in Lambeth, although the Lambeth experience does actually impact upon everything that's going on, particularly with people not getting their status. But we're coming across many cases where individuals who have been in the care system for whatever reason weren't actually naturalized by the local council. So it's something now that we are talking to the Home Office about. However, it's an appeal. If you do come across someone, please ask them to get in touch with us, because we're trying to collate the figures, because one of the concerns that I'm having is that the people I am talking to, they are lapsing back into the trauma that they suffered, and some are actually suffering from some form of PTSD. And I think it's important that we ensure that the appropriate support is given as well. So that's an ask, and you've got details of how to get in touch with us. Please do so. But on that note, I'm going to stop there. I just wanted to share that with you. So we are being as proactive as we possibly can, and we do listen, we do assess the inquiries that we do get, and we do raise those inquiries as well. Gabrielle Monk's on with us this evening. She's head of Windrush operations, and we have asked as well, in terms of the compensation figures, if we could get a gist of a better breakdown of them. We have fed that back in. I'm not sure if that's available tonight, but to let you know, we fed that back in as well. And at our previous meeting, where we were honoured to have Wendy Williams launch her call for evidence, she did make mention to Professor Martin Levermore, and I'm privileged to say Martin's on as well with us this evening, so that to tell us what he does as the independent advisor, and give you an opportunity as well to ask him those all important questions as well. So on that note, I'm going to stop, and if you don't mind, Reverend Clive, I'll hand straight over to Gabby.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for inviting us, and I'm very honoured to be here. If it's okay, I just want to introduce a couple of new members of my team, if that's okay. So you noted that Paul's here. Paul Styron's my operational manager, but I've got two new senior managers to introduce to you, and that's Zara Latif and Francis Buzio. Zara and Francis have joined the team to lead on the policy work. I think in the past you'll have seen Caroline on the calls with me or with Tom previously, and Caroline has been leading on the policy work. But Caroline is leaving work temporarily at the end of this month for a happy reason. She's leaving to have her first baby. And while she's off, Zara and Francis have joined, and they were both really keen to come along tonight and to listen. I think you know that we all find from the Home Office that it's very valuable for us to listen to your experiences and to get feedback from you direct. And as Clive said in his opening remarks, sometimes some of that feedback and some of those questions may be hard, but it's important that we listen to them, and that's why they wanted to be here as well. So let me just move to give you just a very quick update on where we are operationally. I'll give you some facts and figures to start off with. So as of the end of September, we had received just over 3,000 claims. That's 3,025 claims. And we had made final decisions on 1,274 of those claims, which is around 42%. And the numbers of claims that had been completely concluded were 864. So in terms of how much money has been made in terms of offers, that now stands at 37.2 million. And we have paid out more than 31.6 million across 864 claims. And I know you'll all be aware that up until December last year, the rates of payments were much lower than they are currently. And we have seen over this year that the increase in payments has been quite significant. We've also referred 1,424 claims to the independent claimant assistance provider to help people with the application. So we are pleased on the progress we're making, but I think we would acknowledge that there is more to do. Our real focus at the moment is to try and work on our oldest cases. And we've got an aspiration to clear the cases from last year, so the pre-2021 cases, by the end of March, so within this financial year. And that's very much what our focus is on at the moment. And I think I shared at the last meeting that we were bringing new teams on to do this work. We have brought 2 new teams on, and we have another team that will be starting in January. They are existing civil servant staff, but they have previously been working on the European Settlement Scheme work, which is an area that I have had responsibility for. So the work they've previously been doing is very much focused on helping people with their settled status, and they're very much trained in a sort of customer focus. So I'm really glad to welcome them to the team, and they will be working very much with a focus on getting the right result for applicants. So just to share a few other updates other than the facts and figures in terms of numbers. You'll know that in July, we changed some processes and put a package in place to support people who were applying for probate on cases where the original claimant had unfortunately passed away while the claim was still live. We're really pleased with how that's working on probate documentation. We have had some cases already successfully obtain probate, and that means that we can continue to work the claims through to final decisions and support families through what is obviously a very difficult time for them. You'll know as well that the Justice Report on the Windrush Compensation Scheme came out on Monday, and we're considering the findings of that at the moment. There are some really good suggestions there, and we want to have a look at that and see what we can take on board from that feedback. obviously we're working with how the Home Office has implemented her recommendations, and there are colleagues on the call from that team today, and I'm pleased to hear that too. We did talk to you previously, and you raised some concerns as an organisation about close family member claims, so we are having another look at that and seeing what we can do. As Bishop Desmond's mentioned, there's been some concerns expressed about the impacts of children being in care and what impact that had on their immigration status, in terms of not getting the right support from the people who should have been acting as parents in loco parentis. So we're having a look at that and seeing what we can do. I think our preference is to try and find a way of encompassing that in the scheme as it currently stands. You'll understand that that's because making changes to the scheme can take time and can be a slow process. So we're really grateful that you've raised those issues. We do share and acknowledge some of the concerns you've got there. We're interested in hearing about more cases. So if other individuals have information on the impact of being in care on establishing immigration status, that would be really helpful. And the final thing to share with you is just that we're reviewing our customer contact strategy at the moment. We've had feedback from yourselves and direct from customers that the process takes a long time, but the lack of updates is a concern. So we are looking to make sure that the updates we provide are meaningful and useful. And we have some plans taken from the feedback we've had on how we can do that, and we hope to be launching that shortly. So we will share more information on that when we're ready to do that. So I will pause there. Let me just check with Paul, Zara and Francis whether they want to add anything or say anything. If you do, just come off mute and put the screen on. If not, I'll assume that I've remembered to cover everything, but do prompt me if I've not covered anything.
If I can jump in, I'll just turn over to you as well. I just want to say, I mean, I am very new, but I really felt very grateful to get this role because I'm the child of immigrants. And even if you're not the child of immigrants, the injustices that have happened. And I think I certainly see in Gabby and my fellow colleagues and other people in the team a genuine desire to honour that experience and to hold that in our mind as we try and work through the complexities of implementing this scheme through the civil service. So I just wanted to say that thank you for allowing me to join the conversation this evening. I really hope that I can be a useful partner to you from the kind of Home Office government perspective. And yeah, just I honour the pain, I acknowledge the pain. And I also appreciate that, you know, for many of you on this call, these are things that you guys are living, breathing, advocating, fighting, doing today, have done so for many decades even. And there's no kind of, there's no, you know, the meeting finishes, but the work doesn't finish for you. And I just really respect that. And I'm very, very, I feel kind of privileged basically that I get to work on Windrush from inside the Home Office from that perspective. So yeah, looking forward to working with you, learning from you, and hopefully being of service.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Appreciate that. That's really helpful. So we're open to any questions that people have. I think we've said previously, but just to remind, we won't discuss individual cases here, but if individuals do have concerns, we are happy either for them to come through Bishop Desmond or for people to send things through to us direct. So back to you to handle any questions, and we'll answer them the best we can.
Okay, thank you, Gabby. I think there was a problem with the sound there, so we're not too sure. You may get asked, what did you say? But from my end as well, but my internet is playing up slightly. So we're only going to take a couple of questions at this stage for the Home Office, because we want to hear from Martin. Then we've got a general Q&A after when Professor Martin Livermore speaks. But Julia, so we just got 2 questions. So those are the only 2 we're going to take at this point, which is Julia and then Glenda. And then we'll ask Professor Martin Livermore to speak, and then we'll open it up for a general Q&A. Julia.
Thank you, Bishop Desmond, and good evening, everybody. One of my questions is basically to do with the 10 positions that were made, put out in a post to recruit people as executive officers at the Home Office, and the deadline date was for the 18th of November, today at 11:55 p.m. Can I ask why the Home Office has decided to put that out in a generic pool rather than recruit advocates or people who you are fully aware of within the grassroots agencies that you could have reached out and done an interview informally, and even seen if there was an opportunity for those considerations if interested parties wanted to apply?
Thanks, Julia. It's a good question. I mean, I do hope people will apply from grassroots organisations and people with a specific interest. The reason we recruit in the way we do is because the civil service commissioners require us to recruit staff only through fair and open competition. We are never allowed to recruit from limited groups. That's for a good reason, generally, and it does mean that across the civil service, our recruitment processes are open and fair. It does mean that when we're doing things like this, where you're absolutely right, people with specialist knowledge and advocacy would be really useful, there's that conflict there, but we are bound by the Civil Service Commission rules and there's no flexibility on that. But I really understand why you asked the question. And I do hope that people will still have applied with that specific interest. Thanks.
Yeah, hi. My question is basically what Julia was asking, but I looked at the job description for the caseworkers, executive caseworkers, and I note that there's in the job description, you're not asking for someone from financial background or have any advocacy experience or even experience in trauma and mental health, because you're dealing with a lot of people who have been traumatized. So I think that would have been helpful. To me, it's just a basic civil servant job, just what the job description says. So I don't know if it's something that they can perhaps look at the job description and add some things, because what we don't want to do is have people coming forward and going to and being approached by these people on the phone, like going to the job center. That's how I see it, speaking to the caseworkers now. It's like just going to the job center and and tick you off. So I think that whoever's going to be put in this position need a little bit more experience in mental health with a financial background and advocacy as well. There was thank you for even updating us on the close family members, and I think that would be for Zara, because the last person I spoke to was Caroline Lawless, and she stated as the person, the policy they were looking into, especially the discretionary part of the form, where it would be I don't know if you could simplify it or give us a proper explanation, because people, close family members who fully supported primary claimants, when they were submitting what the form was asking for, caseworkers would come back and say, no, but this is what the form says. So I don't know if you're looking into that, or is it something, is there changes going to be made, Zara, as the new policy person?
So I'll bring Zara in a sec. What I will say on the job ad, Glenda, is job ads about to close, but certainly what we could do is think about that in the interviews and ask people about some of their experience around that. So Paul and I will have a bit of a chat about that. I think it's a really helpful suggestion. You're right, it is a fairly generic civil service advert, and again, there are some restrictions on how we do our job descriptions, but I think it's certainly something we could test for interview. Zara, I don't want to put you on the spot around the family members. Is there anything you want to add, or is it something that you think we're best just coming back on when we've formed our improvements on that?
Yeah, to be honest, Glenda, I mean, thank you for asking the question. And it is just something that because I'm just literally a few weeks old. So I'm aware that it's an issue that needs to be picked up and that needs to be progressed. So it is very much at the top of one of the top things on my to-do list. But I'm sorry, I know this is not helpful, but I don't have anything concrete to share now. But I'm confident that we will, in the next few weeks / couple of months, be able to have progressed and moved forward and made some decisions on that policy area.
Okay, thank you, Zara. Is it something that perhaps we can bring at our next meeting, which won't be in December, but January, if you could give us an answer to that, please? Thank you.
I'd certainly hope we can bring it back to the meeting in January and give you a bit better of a fuller answer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Gabby. Thank you, Julia and Glenda. Julia's put a question in the chat. WNO is open for business during December, so there won't be no issues there, but we'll continue working and supporting throughout December, although there won't be a meeting. I think, Gabby, so according to looking at the chat, it's probably prudent to, when these jobs do come up in future, for them to be passed out to us so we can circulate them, because there is a point there about cultural sensitivity, and I think that was in the Justice Report as well. And just for the record, I did chair the subcommittee for communications in the Justice Report that was published this week regarding Windrush. The Voice newspaper are on this evening. They have identified themselves, and also as well, my apologies, but for transparency's sake, we have got a member of the cross-government working group on with us this evening, Bishop Joe Aldred, but he is here as Bishop Joe Aldred. So I thought, just for transparency's sake, in case I get told I'm covering up his attendance this evening, I'm not, but he's here as an individual. And I've got that right, haven't I, Joe?
Yes, indeed, you have. In fact, I'm surprised that other colleagues are not also here, because I gather it's an open meeting that one can attend as an individual.
Of course, and we do welcome you this evening, and thank you for joining us. It's now my pleasure to introduce the recently appointed, I can't say newly, he's been in post for a while now, the recently appointed independent advisor to the Windrush Compensation Scheme, Professor Martin Livermore. Good evening, Martin, and welcome. Over to you.
Good evening, Bishop, and good evening, each and every single one of you who's taken the time to join this evening. As Bishop Desmond has rightly stated, I'm the newly appointed independent person after Martin Ford. In fact, I took on the position in March of this year. What I would like all parties in this line to be aware, my role is not that of working for the Oval, specifically completely independent of the Oval. However, in my remit, which is really 5 major areas, 7 subset areas, in fact, a total of 12, it is to try and provide an independent perspective and assurance in what is and how the scheme is performing. And that is specifically trying to ensure that whatever the perspective and assurance that is provided into ministers and other senior officials. In addition to that, to help guide the strategy of the department in terms of the Windrush Compensation Scheme. There will be overlaps, I should say, the Windrush Scheme and the Windrush Compensation Scheme, and to ensure that key objectives and targets are being met where at all possible. So that's also about scrutiny. and get into the underbelly of the system, establish quite clearly from an implementation stage rather than an innovation stage. Martin kindly did a lot of the work in innovating, trying to pull this together. But like most things, it's about looking now at those things that work, making sure they work effectively, and those things that may need tweaking or changing done within a relatively full timeline. That means governance, ensuring that the right governance, the right controls, the right risk management elements are in place, and an effective understanding by all the caseworkers. I'm glad that Glenda raised a point around dealing with claimants and understanding the risk, not just the financial risk, but also the human risk in not effectively managing things correctly. And like this evening, and I've not have done many of these, being part of the community engagements, ensuring that I get a sense of what the community at large feels is happening, and to be able to be an effective intermediary between the Home Office, the communities, and generally ensure that the language is a language that both is understood by communities and understood by Home Office. So getting that right. But within those 7 subsets, as I mentioned, I will attend quarterly the Wind Risk Compensation Oversight Board, which we will have up-to-date management information and reviews, and I will throw some statistics as we go through this, so you can get an understanding of why the 7 months has been really just to try to get under the underbelly and get an understanding of the complexities surrounding the scheme. In addition to that, where at all possible, to lead stakeholder engagements on both sides of the fence, so that there's a good degree of discourse and a building of understanding. And providing accountability on the scheme operation to ministers through regular reporting. I do report to the Home Secretary twice a year. And in fact, since speaking on the appointments, there have been certain changes to the scheme, as in the end date being removed. So no longer we're looking at as 23rd of April 2023 as an end date for the scheme. The scheme has no longer got an end date. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be trying to ensure that due authority and due responsibilities are done to support and assist those who have been affected. So really, that's sort of overview, the sort of job description. But that job description doesn't really feed down into the meat of things, the understanding of where the numbers are coming from. What is the size of the impact or problem that we're looking at? And more importantly, the subtleness of those parties that have been affected. So I've been taking time, as most people will probably tell you, the actual numbers, wherever you read them, wherever you try to find them, seem to disagree, in terms of what is the Windrushian generation. What does that actually mean? Are they specifically all Jamaicans? Are they specifically all from the Caribbean island? Or is there something bigger that we're missing? And if we don't get it right, how can we ever hold and say we've actually got change and performance in place? So just to give you an example, and I support what Gabby said earlier, there has been 3,025 applications, and I'm going to also ask you to hold on to that word, application. because personally, in my opinion, that is not individuals. And we're talking about individuals here at the end of the day. Out of those 3,025 applications, now these are those that have come via status, those who have gone and got themselves regulated in some shape or form. There have actually been 2,500 successful applicants that have moved. Now, why is the statistics important? The scheme was launched back, as far as I'm concerned, formally in April 2019. By September 2021, in total, there's been 8,714 successful status applicants. Now, I will breathe for a moment there, because although we're talking about 8,714, the actual number of Commonwealth status was 4,850, which is actually 55.6% of the overall numbers. Now, does that resonate into applications or individual people? And the WNO scheme is really about affecting and supporting individuals who have been affected. So we should not get tied up to effect on the application. We could have 1 million applications, but if only one person actually is successful, then actually we're not doing the job set out. So it's important to try and get a feel and a balance of the real cohort that's been affected, where they've come from, and then to also build the relevant communication support network to build trust and confidence, get them through the doors within a timely manner. And I say timely because, as we know with COVID, time is short. And if someone has to wait a number of years before it can complete conclusion through their application, that's not acceptable. And we all know that. And therefore, by having a curated conversation, we can try and find rational ways, jointly, the Home Office and groups like this, to find ways that we can actually give confidence in the means and methodology to actually get to final conclusion of applications. So let me give you again some more stats. On average, it's taken 449 days for an application to come to final conclusion. Now, if you consider that out of the 8,714 applicants which I gave you earlier, the age group, which obviously hasn't got a lot of time to wait, we're talking from the 80-odd-year-old upwards. So there needs to be also concern and conscious how we marginalize and prioritize certain applicants. I will also tell you the largest cohorts of applicants run from the age group from 60 to 74. Now, why is that important? It's important because actually I turn 60 in the next 2 months. So, as Zara rightly said, I'm probably, or could have been, one of the affected cohorts. So understanding where the numbers are from, and understanding the age spread, understanding the timing of that age spread, gets us to understand a bit better about the market. And I'm using market per se as an overall term, i.e. the client numbers, where the client group will sit, and probably to a certain extent, how far away that if we should be touching them. Let me give you another interesting statistic, ladies and gentlemen. The assumption base is that it is Jamaicans that are actually the ones that have been largely affected. What I would tell you is that we are part of a group that have been affected. With those applications, the highest number of applications gone forward came from India. Jamaica was only second, by the way. And why is that important? Because unless we start breaking it down and start looking at the period affected, we're never going to really get in the functional working. And we have to be realistic. It will take time. It needs a degree of compromise, and it needs on both sides of the fence motivated and valued contributors. What I will say, however, that the total number of primary applicants from a registration perspective, there was 448 primary applicants, 63 secondary applicants, out of which 369 achieved over £36,000 compensation. Now, with those applications, one primary claimant may be putting in more than one application. So therefore, we really do need to know the number of individuals, not the number of applications that are going forward. And it's by knowing the numbers can we start to recognize actually where those individuals sit, reside, and how best to communicate our messages. But I don't want to just sit here and give statistics and throw that around. This is about a curated conversation of working together. What I have found is that you have got really motivated people in the Home Office who are wanting to come out and wanting to engage. But that engagement is a two-way cycle, because you also got quite a number of them who are far younger than my next 60 odd years to come, don't actually understand the history. And this is not just about the Home Office, but government departments per se. So it's building that knowledge pool, ensuring that the data sets we're collecting are quite clear and the reasons why we're collecting that data. And also, how do we make sure when we do have that data that it is actually presenting the right messages, the right parties, time and time again, in a consistent, even manner. It is my privilege to know the likes of Bishop Desmond, Reverend Clive, Bishop Joel, and actually only recently coming across Glenda. Because what it does, it brings a curated message of what really has taken place with certain individuals. So I'm in the next phase of my work, we'll be looking at how we do try to work in shortening those numbers to get to a time whereby we're not talking about 400 odd days to actually achieve completion. To basically work with Gabby and the others to see how best we can make sure that caseworkers are armed, informed, and is able to be going through those cases quickly without cases moving from one caseworker to the next, or reducing the duplication. And more importantly, how we best use a balance of probability. I'm not sure, I mean, like most of you, those who can actually remember when they went to school and where their O levels may be sitting will be probably great. I can't. So if you ask me to grab out some of my certificates at 30-odd years old, I don't think I could find it. But I assure you, through timelines of everything else, those certificates existed. I would also say that transition in the length of time it takes for an application to complete will have mental and possible physical impact on an individual. So therefore, we do need to add things like current medical information in place. We should not be looking at old medical data. We should be looking at determining compensation at that point in time where it stands. And finally, Windrush, in my mind, and others may be different, is about a period of poor legislation that has actually affected a whole host of migrants that came across the span to help develop and to grow this great nation. As such, whilst we see a significant amount of Jamaican applicants, we should not forget the likes from the Dominican Republic, Trinidad, India, Kenya, Nigeria, all of which, during the passage of time, came across. My job is to ensure we have an efficient, positive, and progressive scheme. And I seek your to ensure that alongside that of Home Office. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you very much, Martin, for that. We're going to open to general Q&A. Reverend Clive, do you want to handle that, or do you want to handle the Q&A for me this evening, Nigel?
I can do, Jez. I can do it if you want me to.
Do you want to take it on, Nigel? Over to you. So Nigel, our Q&A, just please put your hands up and I'm sure Nigel will come to you. Thanks very much, Nigel.
Okay. Anyone have a question? I can see one hand raised. Is there anyone else? Okay, Julia Davidson, over to you.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Professor Levermore, for that very informative update on the numbers. My question that I've actually written in the chat, just in case there's interference from anybody trying to hear what I've got to say, I've put the numbers are disproportionate to the applicants that the Home Office are stating, and they're not successful with their outcomes. Please, can you advise how many applications or applicants whose applications was not upheld? And finally, what is it that you're hoping to apply differently than your predecessor, Martin Ford QC, tried to do? Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. What I can tell you, out of 3,000 odd applicants, 2,500 were successfully going forward. So that's a differentiation of 1,000. I have actually gone back to seek the answers to the question you just put forward. I'm not sure whether it's the quality or the information that has come forward. And I'm specifically talking about status. Yeah. So I would have thought if somebody has been established to have been stateless and have been confirmed and have therefore transited across onto the compensation scheme, then there's generally should be a reason that they should get through the system, get to the end. If something is fallen down the road, which is possibly the reason, because to have 3,000 applications, but you've only got 500 and odd individuals, that tells me there's a lot of information being thrown back in. Hence, where I would like my starting point is how do we record individuals and individual outcomes rather than the number of because actually it's about personalizing the journey rather than the numbers that come forward. In addition to that, where I talk about better application of the balance of probability, it's understanding the journey and in ensuring that that journey is consistent. And I'm sure Gabby and the rest are working very hard on this to ensure that there's consistency in caseworkers' decision making. And that way also, what you're trying to find is that there will be less duplication and better and speedier out going down the road. I hope I've answered your question. It might not be fully, but if I haven't, I will get the question, the answer for you in feedback.
Thank you very much, Martin. I was just going to say, I think you did answer the question. If you're going to look at that as a starting point, then we could get some real clear, accurate information, because it could be a case of it's not been picked up. And if that is an area that hasn't been picked up, then perhaps that could be something that would be fortuitous for the Home Office to investigate, not to prolong applicants' case files, but to actually look if they were already in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia, for your questions. And now, like you said, that's been answered. And there are people who've got questions, but there were some questions that were on the chat with regards to the number of status that people have actually received in terms of the comparison for compensation and those not coming forward. Are those that come under the Windrush compensation scheme, are those that have applied for status, or are they from EU numbers as well? Martin, are you aware of that?
I can say the numbers which I quoted, which was 4,000 odd, are for the Windrush compensation from a Commonwealth perspective. In total, there was 8,000 odd. And so again, through extrapolating, we were able to come to the 4,000 odd number accordingly. But I will also say the numbers were cut further because within that status there would be newly borns from age 0 to 4, which again probably would not fit within the cohort or be eligible within the scheme. So it's really crystallizing it down to get to those numbers. But so saying, I would still say, you know, we're not yet landing the key messages correctly wherever we should be. With only 500 odd individuals on this and the numbers I've got being completely successful, my question would be, where are the other 3,000? What do we need to do to encourage them to come further forward?
Okay, well, there's one more question from Gary Proud. Gary?
Yes, can I raise a couple of issues that have come out of Professor Martin conversation, and it may be connected with what was said previously. I think it's true to say that many people for the past 2 years or so have raised concern about the culture of the Home Office. And that culture has become almost policy in the way the Home Office does apply its processes. From your point of view, Martin, as almost scrutinizing the Home Office, can you see any changes within the Home Office or any attempt for cultural change within the Home Office? Because I think that is crucial in developing a better relationship with claimants and Home Office.
The straightforward answer to that is yes. From my experience and from my conversation, and I have, as I said, taken 7 months to do a watch, wait, and observation. What I will say within it, and this is, and I'm sure Home Office staff will be able to take themselves, this is unusual. This is, this entire process is unusual for any civil servant. So there is a cultural change that's just developing and taking place. As Gabby has just said, customer service in the private sector operates quite different. There's a reason the way it will perform and take information and interact with its clientele. You're going the opposite way around it. You're trying to bring a feeling of private sector customer service processes in to an area that has never been really used to that. But there is the element I found is parties are prepared to listen. They're prepared to go away, scrutinize the information, understand the risk processes around what's been said, and looking where it's all possible to implement. Now, implementation of any form, if you change one part of the system, you need to check that you're not disturbing another part. So it may appear to a claimant as something dragging his feet, but rest assured, things are actually happening. I do say, though, what we do need to get to is a way in which we can build that trust element across the communities in order to ensure that we're seeing the numbers. The only way we're going to know if the system really, really works is when it's volume flowing through, and then we can assess are everything working effectively.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Just those who probably don't know how to raise their hands, on the reaction button, there's a little dot at the bottom of your screen that says reaction. If you want to actually say a question or ask a question, then press the reactions and look for your hands to raise your hands. I do know that Herman Irish had a question, and Herman, if you want to unmute and ask your questions, which were earlier, unless you want me to read them out, I'd prefer you to actually have a dialogue with the Home Office and Professor Martin Levermore. So if you want to ask a question.
Ask my question in chat.
You're actually online, Herman, so we can hear you, and we're encouraging you if you want to vocalize your question now, Herman.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can indeed, sir. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Professor Livermore. I was just thinking, those figures with regard to those who have moved on from status, do they include the Italians and Canadians? Because one of the things with Windrush, and it's only belatedly now where people seem to be really waking up a bit wider in the community, it's not just for Commonwealth countries, it does actually for those outside of the Commonwealth as well. And I'm just wondering, with the numbers, which you extrapolate as well, how does that sort of affect the figures, as it were?
Right. Again, whilst doing this, we got all of the status applicants that went through. And again, I've contained my notes to be absolutely accurate. What I will say is that the total from April 2019 to September 2021 was 8,714. For those that were from the Commonwealth, which excludes Italy, Abadai. See, I'm getting tongue twisted now. I should have a drink. Excluding Italy and others, but does not exclude Malta and Cyprus, Australia and Canada. The numbers come to 4,850.
Thank you.
So yeah, those 4,850 is specifically Commonwealth.
Okay. May I ask just a very quick supplementary, very quick one?
Go on, Eamon.
What are the numbers with those then who move on, as we were saying, outside of the Commonwealth with their status applications, but how many of them, for instance, move on to compensation?
Again, out of the 4,850, there was 3,050 applicants, to which 2,500 applicants, and I keep using the word applicants, not individuals. The actual number of individuals was 487 primary and 63 secondary. You can show with that percentage that there's not many people transiting even from status to filing for a compensation. Now that could be a host of different reasons, but it's important to find out those reasons. That could have been that the application was, as we're told, complicated. They didn't have or didn't feel they suffered any duress or whatever, but we don't know. And I would really like to establish that. I know Home Office colleagues in engagement are going back and seeking to support those who haven't come forward and find out why. But at the end of the day, it's a personal choice whether those individuals wish to or wish not. I think by providing the system and service there, that's a choice for them to take it up or not.
Okay, thank you. And I know there's some people who've actually had a very good service with regard to David and Azza with regard to help with the status applications, but I know others who haven't sort of worked with them personally had an arduous task, and that's put them off from going forward to the compensation. As soon as they've got the status, that's been their lot. They're happy with that. But thank you very much for your feedback there. Thank you.
Okay, and Irish, people have got their hands up. I can see Richard Black, Roslyn, Clive as well has got his hand up, and then Julia Davidson. So I'm going to go to Richard Black. Richard.
Yeah, pleasant good evening to everybody. I have two questions. One to the Goodley professor, and the other one is for Ms. Monk. First, let me put my question to the professor first. Right. On the 27th of March next year, Professor Levermore, the Home Office will be 240 years in existence. Are you trying to convince me that from 2019 till now, 3-year period, or 2018, that they've changed so much that we're supposed to start to trust them, or what are you suggesting?
Well, I will say, in my short term, and the Home Office is not too dissimilar of many of our institutions, which has taken time to change. I will just give you an example here. I am pleased to see that the UK, for the first time, have got 2 Black brigadier generals that were appointed this year. For somebody who served in the forces in my day, came to office, it was unheard of that we would get. Systems have taken time. And that's taken time because there has been a discourse, there has been an opening up. And there is a reason for it. You know, if we remove ourselves from individual silos, we can share information, we can share experiences. The individuals will then awaken and broaden their understanding. And I can only say for those that I have come across in the Home Office, from the junior staff all the way to the senior. They are more awoke to what has taken place. They also do understand that there are bureaucratic issues that needs to be dealt with going down the road. And this is about repositioning and reformulating a system, which also is there to protect a broad swath of our communities. It's not perfect, and I will add to that, it is not perfect. But then if it was perfect, we wouldn't have to have these discussions. What we're trying to do is educate across both sides of the fence, understanding their limitation, understanding the community limitation, and trying to find a way in the middle to ensure that justice is always delivered. I hope I've answered your questions.
Thank you. The second question is to Ms. Monk. Earlier on in her presentation, she spoke about 36 million pounds plus being paid out in total to victims. Isn't that a false sense of achievement in terms of the amount of money that's out there? Questions directed to Ms. Monk. And just before you answer, Ms. Monk, all my interactions with you thus far has been extremely positive. I want to say publicly thank you for your interventions where I'm concerned.
Thank you. That's very gracious of you to say that. You're right. 36 million that we've paid out is a figure, and it's only a figure for the people we've paid, not the people we haven't yet paid, or the potential people that haven't yet applied. Part of our reason for interacting here and all the outreach work is to try and make sure that people do come forward and apply. I know there's lots of reasons, complex reasons why people don't apply. I guess my aim is to try and make sure we get the message out to people that they should apply, that they have nothing to fear in this instance by interacting with us because of all the safeguards we've put in place. But it's also my concern, and I know there's a comment on this in the sidebar, make sure when people do apply, we progress cases as quickly as we can, and we work with people to help them get the information they can to support the claims. It's a fair challenge, Mr. Black.
Just one final observation, ma'am.
If you can be quick.
From March, come May of next year, May 1st, what's happening with my wife's visa?
I can't update you on that here, but if I can make sure one of us drops you a line on that, if that's okay.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, let me pick that up. Paul and I will talk, and one of us will come back to you in the email.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to balance the hands that are raised, but also those who just want to pose a question, not just in the chat, but in the sense of it's a pertinent question. One from Sophia, and she's saying that she's a survivor and she's been on this platform many times, but she's getting frustrated, like many, that the applications for compensation is taking too long. And I do know that Professor Martin indicated probably on average 400 days or so for an application to be considered and processed through. People are getting frustrated. How can we quicken this up? Home Office.
Would it be helpful if I took that?
Yep.
Okay, fine. So there's two things, I think. One is to make sure we've got enough caseworkers to make sure there are people to deal with cases as quickly as possible. So we've talked about the external recruitment, and we've talked about the extra teams that we're moving on to work. So that's a twofold approach. So we will actually, within the next few months, have twice as many caseworkers on the scheme as we did have at the beginning of this year. So I think that will help. The other thing we've got to be realistic about is it is not going to be possible to make the applications really, really speedy. And I totally get that people do want a quick decision. People do want to get on with their lives, but it's a compensation claim and it does require gathering evidence. If we've got extra people, we can make sure that there aren't delays on our side, but we do recognise that applicants will also sometimes need time to get information. And that also sometimes applicants need to be in the right frame of mind to go and do that. People have talked about the trauma, about reliving their experiences. So we know sometimes some applicants won't want to do things quickly, or they will want some help from someone else to do that. But what I want to make sure is that we don't have any process delays in terms of our bit of the operation, and that we can chase things, we can progress things with other government departments, and that we deal with things as quickly as possible. I get that that is a real priority for people.
Okay, I'm conscious of time, and I can see 4 hands raised. Clive, did you actually wanted to ask a question, or was okay?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Can defer to the colleagues who have got their hands up.
Okay, well, Frank, you wanted to say something. Then I'll go to Rosalind, then I'll go to Julia, and then I'll end with Glenda Caesar. Can we make these questions and also the responses very brief but succinct? Thank you. Frank.
Question to Professor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Is the professor asked a question about applications and those he wants to see real people. Well, one of the applications of people who are not reapplying is because I think they're afraid of what the Home Office might do.
Right, Frank's reception's gone.
Deport them, their lives might be in a mess. Personally, with my application. Pardon?
Okay, Frank, thank you. So I don't know if you got that, Professor Martin, in terms of people's fear of coming forward and being deported with their responses from the Home Office.
Yes, and thank you for that question, Frank, because I think that's a genuine concern of especially a lot of the older applicants or potential applicants, the fear that, well, I've been here for so long, what if they get it wrong, where am I going to be sent? What I will say to you, and this is where the community assurance needs to be given. And I am quite clear of that. Anyone going forward to the Home Office, as far as an application, will be treated entirely on that basis. They will not be, and I am sure, Prime Minister, I am sure by civil servants, there will not be deportation actions being taken against individuals. If there is an issue, I'm sure we can find ways of having a dialogue, such as with Bishop Desmond and yourselves, so therefore we can give further assurances. But I would absolutely assure you, anyone coming forward under the Winrich scheme will not be, and as a legitimate claimant, will not have deportation.
Okay, thank you. Rosalind, you have a question, you got your hands raised.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Professor, for the information that you're giving. And it's good to have the figures, because with figures, we can make decisions based on what we actually know, rather than on what we believe in. Now, the application scheme seems to be very UK-centered. There are a lot of people outside the UK, and as far as I'm concerned, those are being treated as there's a two-tier system. I think there should be more contribution from those outside the UK that are affected. I.e., there's a group of people that were born in the UK, left here with their parents and go to the Commonwealth. Their parents were refused re-entry to the UK. Subsequently, by default, those British citizens were not allowed back in the UK. However, there's not a section on the application for those people, even though they were British citizens and were disallowed re-entry to the UK. Within a 5-mile radius of Jamaica, I know, as of last week, I know of 9. And by this week, I know of 13, just within a 5-mile radius of where I grew up in Jamaica. I was born in the UK, was denied re-entry to the UK. My parents were denied re-entry. By default, I could not come back to the UK until I was an adult. And there are numerous people like those just in Jamaica. And I would assume in other parts of the Commonwealth, Nigeria and so on. However, again, there is no section within the compensation to address those individuals.
Okay.
And
I put that those comments and questions to the Home Office, please.
Anybody from the Home Office who can respond to that observation and realism?
Paul, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you want to give an update on where we are?
Yeah, I'm aware this can be an issue in certain circumstances, and I think that there isn't an easy answer to it. It would depend on the individual circumstances of a claim. So I think where we may need to go away and look at this a bit more is the circumstances where, and it's the ones I've seen personally, but that doesn't mean there aren't others, because there's obviously a lot of claims, is where one parent has tried to come back, presumably, and then the children and the partner will then accompany them later. But because that the first person gets refused, they're not allowed back in. Now, because the child hasn't made an application, we're not saying that there is the position at the moment looks like the child hasn't been prevented from coming back to the UK formally, but clearly there is an informal consequence of what's happened to the parent. I don't know what the correct answer to that is, but I think it's something that we need to go away and speak with our policy colleagues about and get some more examples of the type of circumstances that you've just set out, because I do acknowledge that does that the circumstance you've said is not it does happen. So I think, but we need to know the exact circumstances, and if there are solutions within the scheme as it's written, whether we can, in the way that Gabby was talking about the care question earlier, whether there is a solution within the way the rules are written, the scheme at the moment. But I haven't got an easy answer to that question at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this question that was posed by Rosalind is not just exclusive to the Caribbean, it's obviously in Africa and also the Commonwealth nations, so that needs to be looked upon. Maybe there needs to be some kind of additional work that needs to happen on that sector in terms of outreach in the Caribbean and the Commonwealth nations, those affected by the Windrush scandal. Last two questions, because we are short of time and we get Bishop Desmond Jadu to give a roundup. I have Julia Davidson and then Glenda Caesar, then we'll have to end. Julia, please, if you can. We've only got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Nigel. My question is to Professor Martin Levermore, and my question is, you said in your initial comments this evening that you report back to Priti Patel at least twice a year. Knowing the magnitude of what has gone on with your predecessor, Martin Ford, and also currently the portfolio of the Windrush scheme, is there any way with your detection and what you're aiming to do, can you not have access to the Honourable Priti Patel more frequently? So if there are any changes that can be implemented, I'm just trying to work out, if you are only having access to her twice a year, that doesn't suggest to me sufficient time for you to be able to change anything. And my last and final question to you, sir,
I've got time, Julia, hurry up, please.
Is can you do something about getting us a Windrush Act? Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. In connection with the first part of your question, I say a minimum of twice a year. It doesn't prevent me from having dialogue to the Home Office department, the Home Secretary, at any point in time about a question. So, minimum of twice a year, but it needs to be more frequent. I'm able to do so.
Okay.
And then the second part of your question, I'm not a lawyer, but I understand where you're coming from.
All right. Just a final question from Glenda Caesar before we ask Bishop Desmond Jadu to wrap up, or Clive Foster wants to say something as well. Glenda, please be brief.
I am going to be brief. I think this goes out to Gabby, or even the professor, if they can answer the question. But I note that from the questions in the thing, a lot of people are talking about the speed of the compensation, and a lot of people are being letters that it's like a basic letter that comes back, says there's complexity to your case. Some of the applications that's been put in, it's very simple. So I don't understand why there's such a long period of them getting a claim sorted out. So some are just like people who have supported people, which is a total now is of 20,000. We've noticed across the board that it's just a basic 20,000 that is being given out to close family members. So perhaps the policy people can look into that, because I don't understand about the complexity, whereas a case is so straightforward. So I support it. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, go on.
Right, carry on. This any response? The Home Office or Professor Martin Levermore?
Yeah, so really quickly, and sorry I cut across you there, Glenda. That's part of the stuff we're trying to address in the customer contact strategy. That if we just use bland words like complexity, people are going to think, well, why? It doesn't seem complex to me. So that's some of the stuff we're trying to do. So our letters to people are a bit more meaningful. So hopefully we'll see a bit of improvement on that. Just really quick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, time will tell if all these questions and responses get acted upon accordingly. I will pass this now over to Bishop Desmond Jadu to give a summary of today and any announcement he needs to make. Bishop Desmond.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you for chairing that for us. And thank you everyone for your contributions this evening. Importantly, one of the reasons as well we're having a break is because a lot of these points, we've got all the recordings which will be available over the weekend on our website, www.windrushnationalorganization.com. Now, what we're doing is we're picking up not just from the videos of these meetings, but we're picking up as well from people who contact us directly. We know international engagement is a part of our strategy document, and we will be looking at that in the new year. In addition to looking at that in the new year, we'll also be looking at people who have been stuck abroad. This week, we've had a conversation with the Home Office, for example, regarding people who were told you can't board a flight, for example, by the airline. We've had that conversation, and that will be a part of ongoing dialogue. We've had conversations about people in care, for example. We've had issues surrounding people that returned in the early 1970s, and they had children born overseas. They may not be Windrush, but there are other avenues for where they can get citizenship, for example, for which they're not being advised either. So there's a whole plethora of issues which are coming through now that we have to be dealing with. And I think one of the biggest complications with Windrush is that every day we actually unearth a brand new can of worms, which is actually adding more complexity to what's happening. And this feedback we get from you at these meetings is absolutely crucial. But one thing I want to assure, and I know that Gabby will bear us out on this, that we do approach the Home Office, we do have the conversations with them, but the conversations aren't just shouting at them, because I've been criticized over the past few months for not shouting at the Home Office on these meetings. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. We have to work it out with them so that we can actually make the necessary improvements, so that we can, because ultimately, the whole focus is upon the people who've been caught up in this. Now, addressing the issue of compensation from our observation as an organization, at the moment, we're dealing with even assisting people with tier 2 appeals. One of the things I have noticed is that, like, for example, I saw someone who said, I went to school in 1967 and someone used the N-word. That's not grounds for compensation. It's abhorrent, it's wrong, but it's not grounds for compensation. And some of the ways in which the compensation claims have been articulated, there is no link to someone having a detrimental impact on life because of inability to prove their status. And clearly sometimes, and it is there in some of the cases, we've had one case, just to let you know, where someone was turned down. We helped them with their review. it went up to 5,000 and then 42,000 pounds under the changes, because we re-articulated his compensation form. We assisted him in that. So the point I'm making is that, you know, if you're unsure, seek help. Approach us. We're here to help you. It's as simple as that. And the last thing I'll say this evening is this, and I'll reiterate this. We do not, as an organization, work for the Home Office. We're an independent organization, and we are here to help build bridges. And that's what we're here to do. We won't be shy away from speaking the truth. And as you know, I'm sure if Kate was on the call today, and I'm sure Gabby will be aware as well, every time there's a mass deportation flight, an email goes in, what's going on? We ensure that people who are caught up in the Windrush scandal aren't there, but we do look out for the welfare of others as well. So it's just to let you know, and one of the big things that we talk about now is the welfare of people who are detained as well. So I think, Frank, the point you raised, it's a very good point, but just to let you know, we do police it as well as much as we possibly can. So I just want to thank you all for joining this evening. Before I hand to Reverend Clive, I wish everyone, as well as can be expected, a wonderful Christmas, those who celebrate Christmas. And let's try and move into 2022 together. And let's continue this quest for justice for the Windrush generation. So thank you very much. Reverend Clive, over to you to close off tonight's meeting. So thank you, everyone. And thank you as well, Bishop Joe, for joining us this evening as well. Much appreciated. Professor Martin Livermore and Gabby and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Desmond. Again, a big thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening as another one of our Windrush National Organisation online engagement meetings. And we're going to end as we started. I'm going to ask for those of you who wish to join us at this moment in a word of prayer, are free to do so. And so shall we pray at this time? Father, we just thank you for your goodness and your mercy towards us. We just pray even now that you would watch over us and be with us, our families. We ask that you would take us into your care. You're a God of love, a God of mercy, a God of peace, a God of justice. And we look to you as our source of strength and our hope. We give you thanks for all things, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Reverend Clive, I'm very sorry. One thing I forgot to do, I'd just like to show our respects, and I think we should do this, to a man that I met 3 years ago, and he's honored everything that he said, and he's taken the stick from us. He's actually been helpful as much as he possibly can. And I think we should give, as we won't be having a meeting in December, let's just show our appreciation, and a little round of applause, please, for David Levy. There you go, David. Put you on the spot there.
Thank you, but why?
Oh, wait, David.
Okay, I'll send you the check later on. Don't worry, I'll send you the check.
Christmas presents for all of us, David.
Thank you. No, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everyone. And on behalf of Windrush National Organisation, we're wishing everyone a safe, happy and peaceful Christmas. And hopefully, for those of you, hopefully look forward to seeing you in the new year if we don't see you before that. Take care and have a good evening. Stay safe.
Yes. Take care. Thank you. Bye.
One love.